This one's for Claudia. Claudia, this one's for you. Claudia, this one's for you. I'm too busy giving blessings to give a damn. If you don't like it, I don't care because that's who I am. I'm too busy giving blessings to give a damn. If you don't like it, there's a door and homie, you can scram.
I'm going to look over here for a second.
All right.
Hey guys, it's me, Claudia, with another episode of Skills Pay Bills, and I am here with my really good friend, Johnny Walsh.
Yo.
Yeah, he is awesome. I'm really excited to get to know like a true creative because I feel like I've known you for a really long time, but at the same time, I'm like, how did I not know that about you?
We're going to peel back the layers.
We're like onions.
Yeah.
You'll probably make me cry.
Hopefully it won't smell as bad.
Yeah, they still smell good.
Yeah, that's true.
But dude, I'm like amazed at all the really cool stuff that you've been doing. But first, I just want to give a little context. Like Johnny has been doing a lot of amazing, like, you know, designs for us. Like you did the all of our t-shirt designs, sticker designs, all that kind of stuff. And so, you know, we're just, you know, you've always really have like captured the essence of like, you know, who we are as in like punk rock, but also, you know, the sewing studio.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've always just been like, wow, like always have been very blown away by like your ability to design things. And then the cool thing is that you get to see them out.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the awesome part. But we're really lucky to call you a friend. You know, you've been doing a lot of amazing things. There's been a lot of changes in your life.
Tons.
You know, so that's one of the reasons why we're like, whoa, we should talk about all these like amazing changes, amazing opportunities, like, you know, how you're going from one thing to another thing. And, you know, just like I said, you just in like the last, I feel like couple of weeks, I've been like, whoa, like just this other version of you, which is really cool. And so I feel like that's why I'm like very like intrigued, like who is Johnny?
What is going on?
What is happening here? You know? And then you're like a super cool guy. And like, I feel like, you know, that alignment with like, you know, having like that purpose and that alignment of like, hey, how do you live your life, you know, and how do you go about your life, and how do you, you know, like raising a family, like having a business, you know, like leading with like integrity and like, you know, and for us, we've always been like, wow, like that's someone like you could, and any time that there's someone here in the studio and like, you know, we have an interaction and then people are like, wow, that was like a genuinely nice guy, you know, and I feel like some of us aren't really used to like having genuinely nice people in our lives. They're kind of like, why is that person so nice?
Yeah.
Like, what's their ulterior motive? But it's like, for me, like I've always felt like, you know, you're just like a genuinely nice person, you know?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel the same way about you and Manny. You guys are just amazing. Like from the get-go, it was like, dude, you know when you can tell, and I know what you mean, like, I feel like they're laying something on, like, you know, like
what's up with that?
There's the sugar, there's some medicine behind it. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like Mary Poppins. But like with you guys, it's like right off the get-go, it's like, this is who we are. What you see is what you get. You know, like you can tell when people are genuine.
Yeah.
You know, so I feel the same way about you guys.
Yeah.
You guys are super genuine.
Thank you.
So.
Yeah. And it's easier to like do that than to like try to build like this persona and like, you know, and then all of a sudden be like, wait, which character am I playing today? You know, because it's like it is hard to, you know, try to do something like that. And, you know, and so for us, we're like, whoa, like you've really helped us in so many ways, like with like the designs, you know, and just I feel like we really underestimate that, like, that interaction, right, that we're having with, like, people that we're constantly seeing on an everyday basis, where it's, like, you're here on the block, you're also doing other things, and, like, you're running into each other, but it's, like, that like, interaction of, like, that good interaction where you're like, wow, like, it makes such a big difference, you know? And I feel like with the show that we just had, the Legends Never Die show, it's like remembering people that have passed away, right? But it's like, it's also like, it's put so much things into like perspective where you're like, well, we don't just have to remember them and like, you know, do all that kind of stuff when they have passed away. It's like, why don't we like tell people that we care about them now, you know, and like praise them now and like do all those kind of things so we could see their reaction and like, you know, support all these things. And so for me, it is one of those things where it's like, how do you give the person their flowers now?
Yeah.
As opposed to like when they can't.
How do you eulogize a living? You know what I mean? Like it sucks when someone passes away and you're in that kind of place like, oh, I wish I'd have told them this, or man, I should have been like more intentional and called more, or shoulda, woulda, coulda, you know, and you wind up shooting the bed, right? You know, and it's like, dude, just, if you're thinking about someone for no reason in particular, like text them, be like, hey, what's up, man? Like, you came to mind and I'm thinking about you. You know, how are you? Do you need anything? Like, you know, just thoughts, prayers, good vibes, you know, like anything.
And that like just that, like, I know you've came into the studio a few times and you're like, I'm going to pray for you guys. Yeah. Or I'm going to, you know, and then you're like, it's such, I'm not a religious person, but it's like, it is one of those kind of feelings where you're like, wow, someone's taking the time to actually like put good intentions out there for me. And it's such a beautiful, you know, just a thing for someone to do. So it's like, you're just kind of like, wow, like that's, you know, it's, most of us, we don't ever do that, you know, where you're like, hey, like, you know, I'm going to freaking say this. Or even when someone says, God bless you. And then you're like, thank you. That's really nice, you know, or like blessings always to you, you know, and then you're like, wow, like, because it makes like a huge difference.
It
like,
really does.
You know, and it's like, you don't have to say those kind of things, you know, so it's like, even like those interactions where it's like, they're so meaningful, you know, they're not just like meaningful because it's like, you know, you're just coming in and you're like, hey, because when you're popping in, you're like, hey, I'm popping in. And, you know, I just wanted to say hi and, you know, all that stuff. So it's like, it does feel good for you to feel like it's like, not everyone is like in their freaking like, you know, space and like doing their thing. It's like, there's also other people that are like, hey, I know you're doing something, but it's like, hey, keep going. You're doing great, you know? So
I feel like you're going to be known by how you, first and foremost, like before people know you, they're going to know you by your word. Yeah. Right? You know, like what you say either blesses somebody or condemns somebody, right? Like it's like it curses somebody or it blesses somebody, right? And it could just be cursing you because you're going to be known for what you say, you know? And then I think you get a little bit closer and you see somebody's process and maybe they're like in the heat of, you know what? Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And they're like, that's not really how they feel. They're just really frustrated. And they're like, hey, I recant her, you know. Yeah. But I feel like, you know, the saying you never get a second time to make a first impression. Yeah. You know, I believe it's really true. And I think like more so than what we look or how we try to build ourselves up, whatever mask or hat we put on, I think you're going to be known by your tongue first. You know, like, so is this person kind? Like, you know, like you can tell when someone's kind or just being good, you know, like, and I mean being good for a purpose, not just for goodness sake. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, so just be kind in your interactions. You know, like if you disagree with something, cool. Yeah. You don't have to be a D about it. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I don't really feel the same way. Here's how I feel, but that's cool. You do. Yeah. You know, but here's where I'm at. You know, like you can even be kind and disagree. And right now I feel like the climate that we see a lot of times is if you don't agree with me, you suck. For sure. You know, like, and I'm totally cool with people disagreeing with me. Yeah. And still being like, you know, the homie, the brother, the sister, the friend. You know what I mean? Like, cool. Yeah. Do you know how boring it would be if everything was beige? Yeah. Like, I'm looking around your spot, dude. Like, I know. It's the patches that make it awesome, but first things got to get torn. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So. But
it's so true that you know, it is one of those kind of things where it's like, we have to be able to like have conversations, right? Where it's like, hey, like, yeah, we could disagree on some things. And it's like having that kind of like maturity to basically be like, yeah, I get it. You have your point of view. I have my point of view. And I feel like sometimes we get so caught up in like that place, right? Where you're like, I have to be right or someone has to be right. There has to
Right.
be a right way and then there's a wrong way. But it's like it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
It could be like, hey, they're both right ways.
Right.
But it's like you're seeing it how you want to see it and I'm seeing it how I want to see it. And there's no right or wrong way.
Yeah.
There's just ways, and there's opinions and all those kind of things.
Right.
But it's like there's not like you're doing it wrong and I'm doing it right, and like being able to like, have like a conversation where it's like both people could genuinely like listen and basically be like, hey, I get why you feel this way.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
all that kind of stuff. Because it's like for me, like I always think about it where it's like, people have to be able to at least have like this idea that like there could be this other thing.
Right.
In
everything.
In everything. Yeah.
I mean, there's foundational things.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of stuff that's opinional or
exactly.
preferential or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
And it's like, dude, like, how dare you peel that sticker from the bottom to the top? It's supposed to be from the top to the bottom, and then enter somebody else like, well, I do it from the side. You guys
Yeah.
are both wrong. And then the other person's like, but which side? It's like, dude, like,
yeah.
it's okay for you to
Yeah.
put your shoes on different than I put my shoes on. We both have shoes, though.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah. There was like a phrase, I stopped using it because I was like, wow, that sounds really horrible. Remember, like, there's like 1,000 ways to like skin a cat or something.
yeah. That's like our
My
parents.
cats are like,
There's more than one way to skin a cat. Yeah.
And you're like, and so yeah, the cat's like, what do you mean? But there is
Yeah.
a million ways of like doing something, right? And I feel like if we're constantly in like that learning like
Yeah.
mindset, or that mindset where you're like, oh, okay, cool, like you're malleable, you want
Absolutely.
to like you're down to like, hey, like even like coexist with other people and like collaborate and do all those kind of things. Like you have to be able to be like, hey, I'm more malleable than usual, but really like taking that to where it's like, hey, how can you get from point A to point B?
Yeah.
As opposed to like thinking about it too much where you're
Yeah.
like, this is my way, but
You can take the scenic route, the long path.
Yeah.
Or you could take the, like get in the chopper and like, fly over the mountain. You know what I mean? But I mean,
Yeah.
so what?
Yeah. And I feel like that has been like one of those journeys, right? Where it's like with anything, like it's like, how are you getting there, right? And like the journey is a lot of the times like that place where you're like, I've learned so much about like yourself, about other people, about how people are responding to certain things. And so for me, like just seeing like your journey of like evolution throughout like the years, I'm like, whoa, like there's so many things, and so not just with like design, but it's like you have like a whole video coming out,
Dude,
which is so, this is like
tomorrow.
I know, which is like crazy because it's like, then you're just kind of like, I didn't even know that about you. I mean, I think you had told me once that you were like, oh, I used to be like in a punk band, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense, but then you're like, whoa, and then you started listening to the song and you're like, oh my God, this is like insane. So it's like there's so many, like, you're like a true creative, it's like you're designing like these really cool shirts, like the one that you have on, and I know that's been like a huge hit. Yeah.
It's going outside of the state and everything.
That's cool.
Like we're getting orders from Idaho. We got orders from Texas.
That's cool.
New Mexico, Arizona, Tennessee, North Carolina. I've had some elected officials like, hey, yo, what's up with this? Like, I really love what you're doing here and there. And even had a shout out from, and I'm not going to say who, but like I had a shout out from some news anchors like, hey,
that's cool.
Like I really like this and da-da-da-da. So it's like, this is pretty dope.
Yeah.
Like there's, like, and I know like people can't see it, but it's like, the shirt is just, there's like a scripture that says on earth as it is in heaven, and I'm not a religious person either. I'm a relational person, and I have a relationship, with God, like, and I do believe in Jesus Christ, but, I'm not a Bible banger, and it's like, I think that most people, when they say like, hey, I believe in Jesus or I believe in God, like people automatically like, oh, I met that one person who did, and that person was a total butthole to me. You know what I mean? And like the way that they treated me, and I'm not that person, dude. Like we can talk about whatever. We can, whatever. I could care less. But the one thing that I do love about the shirt is it says on earth as it is in heaven.
Yeah.
What am I trying to convey with that? Well, I mean, in heaven, there's no animosity. In heaven, there's no jealousy. In heaven, there's no hatred. In heaven, there's no, narcissism. There's no like maliciousness. There's no sickness. There's no pain. There's no if that's actually a prayer that I'm supposed to pray in the Our Father, like on earth as it is in heaven, then let me mean it. But let me also reflect on what that means. So more than just pray it, let me walk that, in my neighborhood. Let me say like, hey, Claudia, in our relationship with each other and our friendship with each other, let that be like heaven rather than be like, some war. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to be religious about it, but people can customize it and be like their own neighborhood or their own city.
Cool.
And we have like almost every neighborhood, like neighborhoods that we have in San Diego, I didn't even know we had in San Diego.
No way.
They're like, hey, I want this on it. Or towns that we have like little townships or whatever they're called. I don't know. But it's just like, it's blown my mind. Like, in meeting people, because I'm doing and I'm not the first person to do this. You got like Odessa Kane. And Ryan Anthony, and these guys have been like doing merch and shirts, and then they go and meet you and everything. And shout out to those guys because they're amazing. You guys, Odessa, Ryan, you guys are awesome. But I'm like trying to save a buck like everybody else is trying to save a buck. So I'm like, you know what, dude? Like, why pay shipping?
Yeah.
Let me just like meet you guys. Yeah. So, and I've been meeting the coolest people and having the coolest conversations. And I'm like, this shirt is not just about repping your city or repping your hood. It's about blessing your hood and blessing your city. And you do that in relationships.
That's so true.
So, like, I've been loving this whole little journey. And we just got the webpage up yesterday, by the way.
No way. That's awesome. I know we were talking about that.
I know.
And I was like, oh, damn, how's the website coming along? So, which is great.
It's hard taking orders through Instagram.
If you want to order your shirt,
hey, JohnnyWalshCreatives.com. Ding.
But seriously, and I feel like I could so relate to that, right? Where it's like we've all had like some kind of like crappy interaction with someone, right? Where you're just kind of like, wow, like this is, you're going through something and like someone just kind of like lays it in even more, and you're just kind of like, wow, like, and it's like, how do you shake that off to move on and to basically be like, it doesn't have to be like tomorrow's another day. It's like in an hour, it's like we gotta be able to shake this off, because it's like, as like creatives, like negativity is the enemy of creativity, right? So it's like, how do you like just freaking like shrug it off and keep going, But it's like, I feel like, it is one of those, the thing that I really resonates with me is that it's like you're living it through like something that like you created, right? And so it's like, I feel like there is a lot of that kind of like thing where you're like, you have been that person where you're like, hey, like I've never seen you like down or like angry
it
or
happens,
like,
trust me.
No, I'm sure. Yeah. But it's like, you have like, I feel like the interactions that we're having with people on an everyday basis, they really impact us, right? Where it's like, why lay it on someone that like we don't know what they're going through?
Dude, that's good.
And it's like, and we're all going through stuff, right? Where it's like the kids might be sick, or you gotta freaking have this deadline, and like,
bills are coming, and I mean, like just
everything, and it's like we all have like 1,000,010 reasons to be like upset, but it's like, why don't we have 1,000,010 reasons to be grateful? You
know what I was thinking about the other day? I was thinking about, we live in America's finest city, right? And people come here for vacation.
Yeah.
But those of us who live here are busting our asses trying to like pay to live here, And it's like, it's not a vacation for me. And then I hear so many people who live here say like, oh, the cost of living, bro, da, 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 da. But I started thinking about it. I was like, it's worth it.
Oh, are you kidding?
Like, it's worth the hustle. Like, it's worth not having to be here, like, and if not for anything else, just to encourage you to dream bigger and work harder. And I don't mean that like in a work harder, like, slave to the system or anything like
feel
that.
you.
I mean, like count the cost. You know, anything in your life that's worth anything was worth the work.
For
You know,
sure.
like there's not one piece of art that I've created. There's not one song that I've written
Yeah.
that I just sneezed and it was there.
Exactly.
You know, like in some type of, you know, parabolic way, I had to bleed on that canvas. You know what I mean? Like it had to be through blood. It had to be through sweat. It had to be through tears, you know? And I just think like even reflecting on that, it's like it's worth it.
Oh,
like,
for sure.
Like, and if it's not worth it, then bail.
For
Get out.
sure.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
like
yeah.
if all you can do is complain about something, then you need to get out of that something.
Exactly.
You know, like, or a sabbatical, a break, or a vacation, or, you know,
Go
like
for a walk.
something, dude. You know, like go for a walk.
Go for
That
a
whole
walk.
song that we just wrote, Move On, was written about a walk.
No
you
way.
know, like,
I love that.
I woke up at like 4:00 in the morning and these birds, like you hear in the song, it's like birds out my window singing songs, but it's like, oh, he's talking about birds. No. Like
they were
in the context, like there was this bird in the tree for 3 weeks. It's like, and he would start doing it at 3:30 in the morning. So around 3:30, 4:00, I woke up. I tried to go out there. Hey, for all you animal lovers, I love animals too. But I sprayed that bird with a hose.
You're like, sorry.
And he
He's
came
fine.
right back, not the next day, but like 5 minutes later, like, So I got up. Not that time I sprayed him, but, you know, I got up and I'm like, dude, I'm not going to shut this bird up. I tried that a couple weeks ago and he just doesn't shut up.
Yeah.
So I decided to go for a walk because automatically I started thinking about the problems that might happen in the day and things that I'm like, dude, this deadline and this and that and the third, right? So I went for a walk. And when I went for a walk, I started hearing all these different types of birds.
Whoa.
I saw 2 white screech owls that are like,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, like
Those are...
there's crows, there's ravens, we had all these mourning doves and like all these other birds. I don't even know what they are. And that's just like in your local Southeast neighborhood. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just like walking down the street and I'm like, I want to know why they all do this at the same time. And I'm walking, then the sun, like I'm walking for like an hour and a half, the sun comes up and I'm just like in a totally different place because now I can hear the buses. I can hear the cars. I could hear the nature before. And I'm like, wait a minute, all this, even the buses, like this is making like a crazy song. You know, it sounds beautiful. And I remember looking at these weeds that were growing out of the concrete. And I have this in my front yard. I have a tree that's literally moving the sidewalk because the sidewalk's not stopping its growth.
Exactly.
You know? And I'm looking at all this and I'm like, it was almost as if I could hear, you know, the weeds saying like, if we can grow through concrete, you can take another step.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
You know, and like my perspective totally changed. You know, I removed myself from a place, and not physically, but like mentally and emotionally, that was detrimental to me. And I had broke through to a place that was a place I could grow. You know what I mean?
That.
So like that's what that whole song's about. You know,
love
like
that.
like just keep moving. You know, take another step. Move like if that last step sucked, move away from that.
Yeah,
you know,
for
like
sure.
if you're walking through a storm, the key word is through.
Exactly.
Don't stay in.
Yeah, don't
You
stay
know?
in it.
Like,
Keep going.
Keep going.
Yeah.
So yeah, 100%.
I love that. That is so cool. And you know what? Like, I totally understand what you're saying about like San Diego, right? Like people, yesterday we went on a walk and it's like, I feel like now I'm like, I could go on walks again.
I know.
After like, you know, the craziness of the last 2.5 weeks. And so I'm like, let's go on a walk. Let's brainstorm some stuff. And so it's like, I love doing that, like, you know, and just kind of like, you know, just moving and being outside and all that. Right. And so I totally understand where it's like, you know, we're seeing all these like people that are visiting like San Diego and you're like, oh, that's so cool. And like people, I mean, the weather is like beautiful. Yesterday was like beautiful. I kept telling Manny, I'm like, isn't it perfect temperature? And so it's like the whole entire time I'm like screenshotting like how nice it is over here and sending it to my family in LA. They're like, fuck you. But you know, cause they're 10 degrees hotter. And so it is one of those things where it's like, for me, like living in San Diego, I'm from LA, right? Yeah. So it's like San Fernando Valley, which is one of the hottest places, you know? And so I didn't know like the difference, right? Where it's like, hey, like you're stuck in traffic for most of the time that you're out going to work, you know? And so it is the quality of life that you choose to live, you know? And so it's like, it's not like you live in like a beautiful place. It's like, yeah, you do live in a beautiful place, but it's like, what is that quality of life?
Yeah.
Like, are you going to get, because it's like, I remember we used to carpool together and our commute should have only taken like 15 minutes, but it would take 45 minutes. And you could go on the freeway or you could go like on the street. And so it's like, at that point, it's like, what is your quality of life? You know, and for me, that we've always like had that same kind of mentality where we're like, all right, this is what we want, right?
Yeah.
Like I remember we were living in Bankers Hill in like a super tiny like apartment where it was like the carpet was like just they hadn't changed it in like years, and we're like, and it just felt dark in there, and I was like. And so one of our friends was like, hey, there's like, you guys should come and look at this unit in downtown. And so for me, like, I was like, I've never lived in a downtown before, like even like, you know, in LA or anything like that. And so I was like, oh, cool. Like in San Diego's a little bit more, you know, like not as crazy as like a bigger downtown. So I was like, oh, cool. So we kind of like just went to look at it. Not with the intention of like, we should move soon, you know. Right. And when we went to go look at it, and I remember Manny was like, wow, this is like so beautiful. Look at all these windows. Yeah. Look at like, you know, like how open it is. Look at how like, you know, all these things. And I was like, we could do it. Like we could do it. Like we just have to work a little harder. That's it. You know, we just have to work a little harder. And it's like, and I felt like, you know, being there, we were there for 4 to 5 years, and it's like being there was one of like, we have like so many great memories of like just basically being like, wow, like we worked hard to like be able to like live in like in downtown, you know, and to be able to have like a nice place where it's like you could entertain people, where you could, you know, it's accessible, like you could walk anywhere, you know, all those kind of things. And so for us, it was like one of those things where like you just have to be able to like have it in your mindset that it's like you can work towards those things, you know. And it's like, and not being like, so like this is where I could cap at, right? And it's like, no, it's like it's like just like every year, like how, you know, things go up in price. It's like every year you should also you know, go up in price, you know. And not just go up in price,
and I'm not just talking about raising your prices. I mean, like, but like like your mindset should always be, you know, expanding into like, and I don't mean, I don't, be content with who you are and what you have. Yeah. Right? For sure. But don't be stagnant with who you are and where you are. Exactly. I mean, what you have, like, you know, like keep moving, right? Like the greater, the more glory. Like glory isn't like this. Glory is like, exactly. You know, so like, you know, and I'm not talking about just like glory for yourself. I'm talking about like, you're meant to expand. Exactly. You're meant to grow. Exactly. You know, like water that has no outlet gets stagnant. Exactly. You know what I mean? Like, so like keep flowing, exactly. You know, like, but. Yeah. No, I'm right there 110%. And it is one of those things where it's like, yes, it is expensive to live in San Diego, but it's like, I couldn't go back. Right. You know, because it's like, I know what that other thing is, right? Where it's like, okay, cool. Like we here in San Diego, like it's like you get rush hour traffic. Yeah. Like you get that. But it's like there's no traffic. If you go anywhere right now, you're not going to get stuck in traffic. No. Unless you're like funneling into the 163. And you can always take side streets too. Exactly. It's longer, but you'll get there quicker. Yeah. You know, yeah. So for me, I'm like, everything is like 15 minutes away. Yeah. You know, so it's like, what kind of quality of life is that? Like when you could go to the harbor in like 10 minutes. I know. And like just kind of like chill there for a little bit and be like, wow, this is so beautiful. I think we're talking about changing our mind and perspectives and stuff like that. I think San Diego is one of those places that almost kind of makes it easy for you to learn how to do that. Yeah. Because you can drive like 20 minutes in one direction, be at the beach. Yeah. 20 minutes in the other direction, you're in the mountains. Exactly. 20 minutes in another direction, you know, you're in the desert. And then 20 minutes another direction, you're in a national forest. Exactly. Like, I mean, you've got all these different, like, it's funny, people don't know this about San Diego, but like even in the beginning of spring, like we get snow here.
Yeah.
Like, but like on like, what is it? Mount Palomar and a couple other the mountains, you know, like 20 minutes, like where it's, I don't know, maybe 60 where it is like, cause we don't really have the worst winters. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Like,
it's not that bad.
you know, like, so it's like 60 out, but on top of one of those mountains, it's full on snow, you know? So it's like, and dude, I've actually been at the beach and then been in the snow in the same day.
That's so crazy.
You know, like, where else can you do that?
Yeah,
I mean, I'm
can't.
sure there's other places you can do it, 100, right?
Yeah.
But like, I live in one of those places.
Exactly.
San Diego.
Exactly.
You know? So
I was I had like one of those kind of days where you're just kind of like, wow, that was like very heavy.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, you're just kind of like, wow, that's like a very, you know, you're just kind of like, okay, you know. And so I was like, you know what? I want to reground myself and kind of like basically like we can't give anyone like the power to fucking like, you know. And so I was like, okay, how do you reclaim that power and like recenter yourself and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And so went to J Street Park and like, you know, had some girlfriends. I was like, hey, I want to like journal and like manifest like in That's like good. A book, you know, and just kind of like just be outside. And like I never get to do things like that. Yeah. So it's like for me, I'm like, I want to do that. Like I want to be outside. I want to just talk about bullshit, you know, like just talk about bullshit. Like we could talk about fucking mice or whatever the fuck you want to talk about. I just don't. I want to like be out, you know. The
birds, bees, flowers, trees.
Yeah. And so it was just such a beautiful, like it was like right at 6 o'clock. The sun's already setting. Created like such a beautiful orange like sunset, and I was just kind of like, you know. I always like look at things like that and I'm like, wow, God's like such an amazing painter. Look at him, you know, and you're just kind of like, and then that's where like, I feel like I get a lot of perspective where I'm like, wow, look at this. So beautiful. You get to slow down. You get to like appreciate those kind of things. And it's like, you know, we usually don't, you know, we don't really get to slow down and basically be like, hey, what are some things that like you want to do that is going to continue to fuel that creativity? Right? Because it's
that's
like,
where you shift it. You know,
exactly.
Like there's so many people who are like, dude, life sucks. Life is so hard. Life is blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, dude, I think you got it twisted. Yeah. Life is just beautiful.
Yeah, for sure.
Life is wonderful. Death sucks.
Yeah.
You know, but life is beautiful. And I think what you're confusing it with is all the things that happen to happen inside of life. Yeah. But that's not life.
No. Yeah.
You know, like, so don't get sour at life.
No.
You know, like enhance your life. You know, like I have a friend who like he always says, this is Mr. Little One. He's always talking about how, you know, how you need to enhance your life. You know, where, you know, you can't get more life, but you can put more into life.
Exactly.
You know, like, and it's like, dude, it's
like a stew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, instead of adding more water, you can add more potatoes.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
I love me a good potato in
I
this
do too. I'm getting hungry.
For reals, I'm like, ooh, what other kind of vegetables could you add to life?
We could add. No,
I know, right? You're like, throw it in there, you know. But yeah, it's so true. And I feel like those kind of things, right? Where it's like, I feel like creativity plays such a huge role in like enhancing our life. Does. Like, because it's like, it gives us like self-worth and you know, and what does that like mean for others that are like also watching like this journey, you know, because it's like, I know I like hear it and I'm like, wow, like that's so cool to like, you know, hear people that I know where they're like just so amazed by like other creatives that I know. And I'm like, wow, that's so beautiful for them to like speak about, you know, people that you know in like such a cool way where you're like, wow, like they're genuinely inspired, you know. And I feel like if we're here and we're, you know, living this life and creating like these, you know, things for like life, and we're like, oh my God, this is life and we love it and all that. It's like, it's beautiful when you get to inspire people in the way, you know, and it's not just one of those things where it's like, oh, he's just a cool guy. It's like, no, he's a cool guy and he's genuinely like a nice guy and is doing all kinds of cool stuff, you know? So I feel like that creativity gives us like so much self-worth, you know? So it's like, how do you keep stepping into that, because it's like I feel like just in like the past month I'm like, oh damn, what else? What other things does Johnny do? You know?
I like to take long walks on the beach. No, no, I do. Like, I want to be inspired, but I want to inspire too. You know, because I do youth advocacy stuff. Like I'm a youth pastor and youth worker and stuff like that too. Me and my wife, Wendy. You know, and I remember growing up in a town that didn't care about its youth. You know, and there was nothing to do. You know, so we had one of the highest teen pregnancy rates. We had one of the highest dropout rates.
Whoa.
We had one of the highest gang violence rates. We had one of the highest, you know, drug addiction at youth rates. You know what I mean? And it's like, this is what happens when you don't care and when you don't have legacy. You know, like, so yeah, do something and step great. Have fun, right?
Yeah.
But think about community, and community is a big word. Milo always says, like, community is a huge word, you know, like, so what community you're talking about? Well, I'm talking about the community of those people who are watching you right now, where you are. You got lovers and haters, you know, like, you got those who are inspired and they're like, I saw Claudia do that.
Yeah.
Like that gives me an encouragement, you know, like to step forward. It's an edification type thing, an encouragement type thing, you know, like where they want to step forward and they want to do it because they saw you do it. It's like a testimony almost, right? And then you got the haters, right? You got you got people who think about other people and you got people who think about themselves, man. If someone's hating on what you do, they're a narcissist.
Yeah.
You know, like, case in point, you're a selfish person. You didn't hear what I said. You heard what you wanted to hear.
True.
You didn't try to interpret it. You're not caring about intimacy. You're not caring about relationship.
Yeah.
So go ahead and say what you want to say.
Yeah.
You know, because at the end of the day, you're going to hang by the rope that you lay out. You know what I mean?
So true. You reap what you sow.
Like, I want to put a rope out, but I want people to climb up it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So I think you got to stay creative. If you were created to be creative by the ultimate creator, then why aren't you being creative, right?
That's so
like,
true.
you know, like, and I'm in a season right now, like, you know, shout out to BZ Beats over at the Beat Den.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy is a amazing producer.
Yeah.
You know, like, and he just dropped Keys to the City compilation, which is streaming on all platforms right now. You know, like, sounds like a plug, and it is a plug. You got to go hear it. I mean, this guy is so talented, and now he's brought so many different people together who you may have never heard. Like, you never heard me sing, but you will if you hear that.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a place that in my life, like about 15 years ago, was like, I can't step into this right now. I got to do these other things. But growing up, like when I was 12 years old, like I was rapping when I was 12 years old. My dad was a studio musician. Whoa. You know, like he was a pastor and a musician who was always like going to the studio doing stuff and helping other people and working on his own projects. But he used to like get all his guys together, all his musicians, and they would make me beats. And I had like this little rap group, and we would do like, you know, anywhere we could, like, hey, can we do a show at your skating rink? Can we do a show? Like, oh, there's the mall. Can we do a show here? Like, they're like, what? And we're like, I don't care, dude. Like, we want to get out here and rap, you know? And we would do that. And then growing up, you know, started getting into like some punk bands and everything too. And, you know, like, even like I'm a soul singer, you know, but I love music.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, when BZ, you know, I met him about probably like 10 months ago, and he moved here about 4 months ago, you know, and I was branding him, and, you know, he was like, yeah, like, you know, like I heard that you sing, you know, like David Magoo is like, you know, like he's got the voice of an angel. And like BZ's like, nah, that dude looks like a rapper, but he can't sing. I guarantee it. And I went in there, it's like, dude, you're a soul singer. I was like, that's my love. You know,
I love
like
that.
I laid it down so many years ago, but that doesn't mean it's not in me.
Yeah, for sure.
And it doesn't mean that I threw it away. Like, and I think I think when it comes to creative ventures, people need to see that, like, wait a minute, Johnny builds clothing lines, you know, for people, and, you know, or Johnny was in advertising, or Johnny is a brander, and like whatever I've done, like, but it's like design and stuff like that. But a lot of people don't know about the musical side.
Exactly.
You know, because I've had to push that. I've had to lay it down, but I never threw it away.
That's good.
You know what I mean? And I think there's a place where when I grew up, I remember sitting in front of my uncle, who was the fire chief of Dade County in Miami. I'm originally from Miami. But he was asking me what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I was like, I want to be, I don't know, like Uncle Bill. And he just passed away last month. So, but I was like, like I think what I want to be is I want to be a cowboy. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be, what did I tell him? A police officer. I want to be an artist, and I want to be a firefighter, and I want to be a T-Rex. And he was quick to tell me and crush my dreams that I couldn't be a Tyrannosaurus Rex,
That
Darn,
sucks.
my arms are too long.
Yeah.
Oh well. But
you just need a bigger body.
Yeah. And he was telling me, he's like, like the last thing you want to be is a police officer, because he's the fire chief of Dade County.
Yeah.
Like last thing you want to be is a police officer. They don't respect people and people don't respect them. And honestly, that formed an opinion in me later, like when I grew up, in gangs and, stunt activity and all kinds of other stuff, it's like I felt some way about cops, but I think that was placed in me from, my Uncle Bill.
Yeah.
And I don't feel that way now. You know what I mean? But it's one of those things where I took somebody else's perspective and kind of let it impregnate me with a false perspective, not my perspective.
Yeah.
And
or experience.
Right. So for me, I just felt like this is who I have to be some kind of way, right? And I think that we get there too when it comes to, our creativity.
Yeah.
And like, oh, you can't do that. Like you have to do this. You have to do that.
Exactly.
But there's things that you were meant to do, and I don't think that for the Uncle Bills in your life that tell you can't do this, you can only pick one thing, you got to pick it, you got to nail it in right now at a very young age. I think that's garbage. I think you can do all of those things.
I do too.
It's different seasons.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
well, you know what? Like I can do this. I'm just not going to do it while I'm doing this. Like, oh, wait a minute. This door is now opening for me to do this.
Exactly.
So it's like, know what season you're in, so that you can step into that door. Here's the crazy thing, though. I always heard people say, one door closes, another door opens.
Yeah.
Well, what do you do, though, when 3 doors open up and you've already got this one and it's not closed? Now you're going to have to look and time management and hey, at some capacity I might walk in this, but I'm going to have to close it from time to time.
For sure.
So that I can walk into something else, I'm going to have to close this other thing.
Oh, for sure.
So like what you were saying, a lot of my trajectory right now is kind of shifted.
Yeah.
I'm still doing design stuff, but I'm not doing as much brand work, and I am still doing it, but I'm not doing as much for, people as I did in the past, because right now I'm stepping into this creative side about hey, here's my music and I'm taking it serious.
Yeah.
I love it. In my 40s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why not?
Yeah. I love it. I love that. There always has been this ageism, right? Where it's everything has to happen in right after high school, right after college. And, and so people are like, oh, you're too old. You're too old to pursue your dreams and, this and that. And so my mom, she retired. She still goes to work and stuff. And so I'm like, you didn't retire then. But I was like, wow, that's so cool. You get to retire, and what are you going to do now? You could do anything you want, and she's always been so creative. And so it's she took cake decorating classes and she would make these really cool cakes and stuff. And then she went to school for cosmetology. So she has a cosmetology license. So she cuts hair and all that. And she's an amazing cook, an amazing cook. Yeah. And so I'm like, what would you want to do? And she's like, I don't know, and someone so talented and so passionate about so many things and, getting caught up in survival for so many years and taking care of people for so many years where she's she can't even find herself in that kind of space, and so for me I'm always like I kept asking her because it's like I really wanted to like genuinely hear like her basically being like, I want to go to a gardening club, or I want, you know, like things like that. And she didn't know how to answer that. Like she was like, I don't know what I would do. She's like, I definitely don't want to take care of kids.
There you
You
go.
know, and she was like, that's not what I want to do. I don't want to take care of like, you know, she's like, I don't want to take care of my own grandkids. She's like, I am not, you know, she's like, I raised my kids and like now it's time for my kids
your
to
turn.
raise their kids, you know? And so, but it was like really interesting because I'm like, whoa, like my mom is about to be 70.
Wow.
And like that's like a sad thing, you know, where you're
Yeah.
like, wow, like I'm grateful that she made all those sacrifices to put herself last, you know, but it's like you get into these spaces of like, you know what, Mom, we're good now. Focus on you, like, you know, like do these things that are good for you, that are going to continue to like make you happy and thrive and give you self-worth, you know. And like I kept pressuring her like, what do you want to do? And she was just kind of like, I don't know, you know. And that is like the part where it's like I feel like, you know, even like asking people like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And especially with the younger
hate that
kids,
question.
it's like such a loaded question because it's like most of us don't even know what we want to do when we grow up, you know. It's like we're just kind of like trying to get pushed into this direction of like, you want to be able to like, you know, make enough money to like live in like this place, you know. And you're just kind of like, okay, but what does that even mean?
Right.
You know, because it's like I've had friends where they transition from one career to another and they're like, I'm fucking broke as fuck now, but I'm happy.
Yeah.
You know, and you're just kind of like, wow, like, you know. So it's like, how do we like shift into those places where you're like, money is a resource, yes, I understand that, but it's like it's not everything, and it shouldn't dictate like our happiness. You know, to stick around and to do these things where it's like, if we're talking about like life, right, and how life is like so precious and so all these kind of things, it's like, why are we like invested in like, you know, having like a full day of like bullshit, you know? And so
it's that consumer mindset.
Exactly.
You know, like I could say, Claudia, I'm going to write you a check for $1 billion right now.
Please do.
Right? If I had it, right?
Yeah, thank you.
I'm going to, you know, like, I'm going to write this check for you right now. I'm going to transfer it to your bank. But first.
Oh, by the way, if someone wants to write me a check for $1 billion, that would be great. I would gladly accept it. And Johnny would also accept one too. So,
you know, I'm not like small-minded, but I would just take 1,000. It's fine.
Yeah.
I'm humble.
Yeah.
No, I'm just joking.
We'll both take $1,000. If anyone wants to just kind of like throw $1,000 at us, we'll take it.
You know, but like if I was to say, hey, I got $1 billion for you, right? And you're like, whoa, that's dope. Like, and I can show you like where I can actually produce it, right? Here's $1 billion. I got this. It's set aside for you and Manny.
Yeah.
Dope. Can I get it? You sure can.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it to you as soon as you tell me down to the last penny what you're going to spend it on.
I love it.
You know, now people are like,
We've done it so many times.
what would you spend it on?
Yeah.
You know, like, because you have to have it accounted for. So a lot of times people want, but when it comes down to it, don't know what they'll do when they have it. And that's why they lose it when they get it. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's the same thing with dreams.
Yes.
I feel like that's the same thing with, hey, I know you want to be an XYZ. What are you doing to step into XYZ before you are called XYZ by other people? Exactly. You need to know that you already are XYZ.
Exactly.
Like if you're worthy, but nobody else sees it, and that affects your worth, then you don't really believe you're worthy.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, so it's like make plans.
Yeah.
You know, like and every plan's subject to change, so don't like go and etch it in concrete that this is what it is, and that's a rigid thing. You know, like be pivotal. You know, like where like you cause things to pivot, but you're actually someone who can pivot too.
Yeah.
You know, but like think about it. You know, like, and don't just think about it, walk it.
For sure.
You know, like walk your dream.
Yeah.
Live your dream. Don't just dream it.
Exactly.
But by all means, begin to dream it. You know, begin to plan for it.
Yeah.
Begin to you know, create a space for it. I was joking with somebody. I was like, hey, I said, like, you know, you don't create space for things. You know, like, and they're like, well, you know, whenever it pops up, I'll do it. Whenever
Yeah.
space happens, I'll do it. And I was like, well, hey, here's the thing. Like, if you want something, you got to create the space for it. You know,
It's
like,
true.
and not the Bible thump or get all scriptural, but like, what's the first thing God created in Genesis? Time and space.
Exactly.
So if God has to create time and space to create something, what's your excuse?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, what's like, you know, like, create the space for it.
Yeah.
You know, like, lay the easel out so you can start painting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because without it, man, you're just like, cool, I see you want to do this, but you haven't taken a step towards it.
Exactly.
You know what? Well, I got to see the whole, like, I got to see 3 miles in front of me. Like, no, dog, you just need to see like a half step or a full step so that you can begin to take steps.
I love that. And I love everything about this topic, right? Because it's like I have a lot of friends that are transitioning from like one thing to like another, right? And they feel that the transition part is like very scary, where they're like, oh my God, what is going to happen?
Yeah.
Where like I always call it the fun exploration phase of like, this is like when the hard questions start. And the hardest question is, what do you want?
Yeah.
Right? Like, what do you want? Like, now that you have time and, you know, all, because we're very resourceful. We got these damn phones, and you have like a full ass computer in there.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's also like this city is like a great networking space, right? Where it's like you could go anywhere, and it's like, allow yourself to be open to like people coming up to you. Allow yourself, you know, it's like change that like body language where it's like people feel like easy, like more comfortable to like go up to you, talk to you, all those kind of things, right? And so it's like, I call it the exploration phase. Like, what do you want? Like, what do you want? What have you always wanted to do? Like, all those kind of things, and like really lean into them.
Yeah.
You know, and like that's why for me, like I'm not a great writer. I basically write however the hell like it sounds like in my head, and so I'm like just writing it.
I love it.
And you know, it's like there's a lot of like fuck ups, you know, but it's like for me, like it's really like allowed for me to just really like spit everything out, and then basically be like, okay, this is how I feel, and like cool, you leave it there, and then it's like now you're dumping like this energy, and now you could really like step into like a different type of energy, you know. But it's like really like allowing for yourself to be that in that exploration phase of like, hey, you know what, like I've always wanted to do these things, and it's like, oh cool, and it's like still as like an adult, like being able to like do those things, because it's like I feel like as kids, right, we had like more, you know, time to basically be like, I've always wanted to do pottery, and you know, you're like a kid, and so it's like everyone's like, we're doing pottery today in class, and you're like,
cool, I'm gonna make a bong.
You're like, yeah, and they're like, you can't. But it's like, you know, those kind of things where it's like you're things are being pushed on you because it's like that's what the class is doing, or you know, or this is what everyone's doing. And so it's like, what about the things that you've always wanted to do, that you're like, I've always wanted to do those kind of things, and it's like we're so scared, right? Like I feel like creativity is like one of those things where it's like when we're little, like when we're little, like especially with our kids, we're like, wow, look at you, you're like such an amazing artist, and they're like just finger painting like, you know, things, and you're like, wow, that's beautiful. And then as they get older and older, and like they start to like refine their skill, you're like, wow, that's even better, you know. And like you're just seeing them grow and grow and grow, and then there's like a certain point where you're just kind of like, all right, so stop doodling on shit and like get serious about like life. And they're like, wait, what? And so it's like, but creativity is one of those things where it's like you're constantly having to use as an everyday basis to survive the world, right? Because it's like creativity, like how do you get creative, and like, hey, it's slow right now, so it's like, how do you get creative to basically pivot to like this other thing, right?
How do you make it fast when it's slow?
Exactly. So it's like those kind of things where it's like, you know, society takes away like our creativity, you know, but then it's like, then you're kind of like, wait, how do I survive life without it, right? And so it's like, for me, it's always been one of those things where it's like you ultimately have to always be creative. It's like, and there's a lot of people that they say that, right, where they're like, I'm not creative. And I'm like, everyone is creative.
Dude. An accountant is creative.
Oh, dude, yeah.
You know, like, dude, that person understands numbers in a way that I don't with my dyslexia. You know what I mean? Like I can't stand numbers.
I have to count like a million times before I'm like, wait, how many did I have right here? It's
I'm like,
5.
dude, you're creative. You just created peace in my heart.
Yeah.
You gave me peace of mind, dog.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you.
But yeah, it is one of those things where it's like, how can we like really keep tapping into that creativity?
Yeah.
You know, and like keep moving forward to where it's like, it's not like this thing where it's like, it's so, like, you're just defined by this one thing.
I think so many times we try to fill up our day with busy work or busy people. And I think we rarely take the time to tap in with ourselves.
Yeah.
I think we rarely take the time to set some type of meditative time for ourselves, right? Like for me, my day starts with prayer and meditation.
Yeah.
You know, it has to, you know, like, but so many cool things come from that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think that a lot of people are so busy trying to get people to know who they are that they forget to know who they are.
For sure.
I think that you have to take some time with yourself. I'm an extrovert.
Yeah.
But since 2020, I've been finding lots of introvert sides of myself.
That's cool.
Like, you know, like, because like, hey, I was trapped in a house for a year.
Yeah.
And truthfully speaking, I kind of liked it.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I began to like do that whole Phoenix thing. Like I just got burnt in my ashes and I kind of like spread my wings from it. Like, wait a minute, I've got a little extra time now. Like, go into those creative ventures.
Yeah.
Go into those different things. Like, there's a lot of people who are creative in ways that they don't realize that they're creative because they haven't allowed themselves a space to be creative.
So true.
You know, like it's that thing with your mom.
Yeah.
You know, like, all right, she finished working. Well, she realized now that she likes cutting hair.
Yeah.
She likes cooking.
Yeah.
You know, and on all these other things that she likes, to the point where, whoa, I have so many tools in my tool belt, I don't know which one to use.
Exactly.
You know, well, that's not a bad thing. Take some time and think about which one you like to use the most.
Exactly.
Or even if you want to use it.
Exactly.
You know, like just because you're good at something doesn't mean that you have to do it too.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like just because I'm an award-winning brander doesn't mean that I'm going to be branding for the rest of my life.
Exactly.
You know, like I'm moving into a place where I'm using my voice now.
Yeah.
You know, and that's good. And it doesn't mean that other door is totally closed, because like Milo's sitting with me and is like, bro, you just did this. And like, I've heard like the past like 3 songs that you've recorded, you know, like, and these other ones you're working on. He's like, dude, this is going to change your life. These are actually really good.
Yeah.
He's like, but you've been so good at branding other people, you haven't branded yourself. You know, because that's been what I've done.
What do they say? Like the cobbler who bakes for the baker, like all that kind of stuff. So isn't that
like,
funny?
and that's always been the hardest part for me, is to like, you know, like I love to showcase what I've done for other people. Like I love it, you know, like, dude, and I love to see those people climb, and I love to see those people elevated. Truthfully speaking, if I could have a career that would be the best career ever, it would be this.
That's awesome.
Without the microphones, you know, like just me and you talking. We could remove them. Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like just conversating.
Yeah.
And that's what I love to do.
I feel like that's, every time we see each other, we really get into like really deep conversations like that, where it's like, it's not so surface level, you know? And I feel like that's where a lot of people are having like really difficult time connecting with other people.
I feel like that's what art is, though.
Yeah.
I feel like art is that conversation that you're only going to be able to show someone whenever you begin to have that time for yourself to make that conversation with yourself. And now you've created this conversational piece that shows that you've given yourself time to bring a topic to the table that's actually going to create even more conversation and community with those around you.
So true. I love that. Yeah.
In a nutshell.
Yeah.
How did I get in this nutshell?
No. You're like, How are we in here? Can someone crack us out?
But yeah.
I love that. Dude, that is so awesome. Like I said, like I feel like we always get into like these topics where we're like just, you know, expanding on so many things, you know? So
Yeah.
it's like it's cool to see the evolution of like, you know, Johnny,
Yeah.
you know, and what he's been doing and like, you know, all these kind of things. So it's like we're always here to support everything that you do.
You totally are.
You know, and we always like make sure that everyone knows like, you know, who does our awesome stuff, because it's like it's always you, you know, and we're just really excited for that next like, you know, like thing that Johnny's gonna do, you know. And it's like it's very inspiring to basically be like, oh damn, like he is like doing this other thing now. And it was really interesting because I had this lady, she came in yesterday, teacher, like a college professor, and I was like, oh, when do you guys go back to school? And she's like, oh, you know, the lady she was with, she's like, oh, we go back mid-August. And I was like, wow, that's great. And then the other lady was like, I'm on a sabbatical. And I was like, wow, that's cool. Good for you. And she's like, yeah, I'm writing my dissertation. And she's like, and the last time that I wrote my dissertation, she's like, I was sewing at the same time. And it allowed for there to be such a really good flow with writing.
That's what's
and
up.
I was like, whoa. I was like, whoa, sewing is like one of those skills where it's like it requires a lot, right? It requires a lot of math. It requires a lot of like cutting. It requires a lot of prep. It requires a lot, right? So I was like, whoa, like that's a lot to then like jump into like writing, you know? And for me, like how I told you, I'm like, I'm not a great writer, but I love writing, you know? And it was one of those things where I was like, damn, like that's such a cool, two really cool creative things that they almost complement each other so well, right? Where it's like, I feel like, you know, people are like, you're either like a painter or you're like a this. And it's like, we're so multi, you know, layered human beings. We're not just like, this is what you get to be. It's like, explore, like have fun with like, you know, these things that you've always wanted to do, you know. It's like, for me, like I enjoy like gardening. And mainly like pulling out weeds and making sure all the plants look nice and neat, you know, things like that. And I enjoy being outside, you know. I enjoy cooking when I'm not rushed, you know, like things like that. So it's like, how can we like step into those creative realms and like keep enjoying them? Because it's like, I feel like those then allow for you then to, for me, when I come into the studio, I'm like, damn, I'm like nicely fed. My plants look good. Like I'm gonna like make some killer shit, you know? And so like it does feel, especially with like plants, you're like, wow, look at them, like they're growing.
Right.
They're like, you know, you're seeing them like how like your kids, you're like seeing them, you're like, whoa, they were like this small and now they're like that big, you know? And it's like, and it's showing you that it's like, look at all this like, you know, time and effort and like you watering them and like people telling the plants nice things and the plants are like, I'll keep growing, you know.
Growth is beautiful.
So and so then you're just kind of like, wow, like those basic things, right? Where it's like, what is the thing that waters you, that it's going to continue to allow for you to grow, you know, and leaning into those kind of things, you know, because it's like life hands us so many different things, and it's like, how do we continue to you know, have like this really like enjoyable and like fulfilling life and beautiful life where you're like, wow, look at this, you know, you get to do this in like a beautiful like place that people come to like visit. Keep vision. Exactly. Keep vision. And I think that that's really important. Yeah. You know, I think without vision, that's when you start to like grow old. That's when you start to die a little bit. Yeah. Like I could be in a tunnel, a totally pitch black tunnel. Yeah. I wake up there. It wasn't where I fell asleep, but I wake up there and I walk for days, you know, in this tunnel and I don't see any light. It's pitch black, right? Yeah. That's one of those places like, what's the point of this? I should just die. Yeah. Right? Yeah. But I wake up in a tunnel and I didn't like, you know, like I wasn't in a tunnel when I fell asleep. Same scenario. I wake up in a tunnel, but way, way, way in the distance
You know, like days journey, there's a pinhole of light.
Yeah.
You know, like that's vision. It's going to take you a long time to get there.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to walk and it's going to seemingly stay the same size for probably a couple days until it gets a little bit bigger. And, you know, you may be on this journey for a very long time, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
So true.
That's the vision.
Yeah.
You know, without vision, people perish, right? But with vision, it's like you get new life every day.
So
you know?
true.
So I think it's important to find those things that water you.
Yeah.
I think it's important to find even not just the things that water you, but find good soil.
Yeah.
You know, find good place for you to be planted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And when you find that place, grow roots and dare somebody to try to like pull your roots.
For sure.
Like find that chair at that table, and when they try to tell you that you can't sit at that table, you remind them that that's your table.
So true.
And that I'm not getting out of this seat. I'm staying here.
Yeah.
And there's gonna be like the good times and there's gonna be some bad ones.
Yeah.
But even in those, I will remind myself of the vision and why I sat here to begin with.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
I feel like within like those hard times, it's like that is like the time for real growth, right?
Absolutely.
Like, and so it's like most of us don't want to like go through like these times where you're like, why did I have to go through that?
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, self-reflect. Okay, my fault. Okay, you know, things like that. But it's like we have to be able to like, you know, be accountable for our things and our actions and like all those kind of things, you know. So it's like I totally feel that.
You know what? I heard this. I heard this the other day. It's like one thing that you'll never see with your eyes is your face without the help of a mirror.
That's so true.
Or like a screen or something that like you'll never be able to see yourself the way that you see other people.
That's so
right?
true.
But the crazy thing is like you're sprouting and growing fruit, but your eyes can't always see what you're sprouting and growing.
So true.
You know, and it takes it takes being planted or in a community with other people who can not only allow you to sharpen them, but that you trust and that you vulnerably, you know, give them the power to say, hey, you know what? If I'm messing up, I trust you enough to bring me into alignment.
Yeah.
You know, like, and a lot of times it's like, hey, Claudia, you don't realize that you got a couple new sprouts.
Yeah.
And right there, you've got some blossoms. And over there, you've got some fruit.
Yeah.
You know, and other people, like, it's, how many times have you been like, you know, like, oh, I feel like this. And people are like, what? Are you crazy? You just did this. You just did this. This just happened in your life. Do you remember when this happened? Yeah. Dude, it takes the perspective of other people sometimes for you to, you know, realize where you're actually at, right? Like if we're healed by our conversations and our testimonies, sometimes we're hearing those conversations and testimonies about our own life from somebody else's lips.
So true.
You know, so like that's why I stop in your shop.
Yeah.
You know, because like you said that I'm a positive person, but like you and Manny are too.
Yeah.
You know, like, and it's, you guys are like people who lift people.
Yeah,
you know, like heal people, hurt people.
So true.
And we can see that everywhere, this block, that block, and every other block, right? You know, but healed people heal people.
So true.
You know, so put me with the healers, though.
Yeah.
You know,
for reals. I'm like, seriously, for reals. All that therapy paid off. I'm just kidding.
There you go. Thank God.
But dude, if someone wanted to buy a shirt, listen to the album, watch the video, where can they find you? Like all that stuff.
You can find me no, I'm just joking. You can find me on Instagram at Johnny Walsh, JOHNNY, WALSH Creatives with an S at the end, Johnny Walsh Creatives. That's where you're going to find my social media. If you want to check out the shirts we were talking about, that is Johnny Walsh Creatives, same name, .com.
Yeah.
And you can order it through there. If you want to like collab or get a hold of me, just go to my social media and DM me. I always answer back. if you want to get a hold of, or you want to like listen to what we're creating as far as music goes, go to @BZBeats on Instagram and follow him. I mean, this guy he's phenomenal.
Yeah.
You can go to Spotify, you can go to Apple, you can go to YouTube. You can look up Keys to the City, BZ Beats, and it's a compilation of a lot of us. There's reggaeton, there's soul, there's hip hop, there's different genres of hip hop. It's pretty ambidextrous.
That's
you know
awesome.
what I mean? Like it's well expanded. So music, go check that out on every platform. I am dropping a single tomorrow and a video tomorrow. Move On, and that's me and BZ. And so there's a couple ways to find us. I'm sure there's some more stuff that's coming up that I'm not going to talk about.
Yeah.
But it's coming up really quick.
That's awesome.
So
Woo-hoo!
I'm excited about it.
Hey, thanks, Johnny, for stopping by.
Hey, thank you.
And chit-chatting and, yeah.
All right.
Woohoo!
Thank you. Love you guys.
Yeah, we love you too.
Whoop.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
1 hour, 12 minutes.
Hey.
Woo-hoo!
That was a great conversation, guys. Dude,
Hey,
Yeah, I
the
love
boys
it.
are
that was
like...
great. That was awesome.
You're like, dude,
like,
now we got to go sit in a doctor's office.